Hi, everyone. I have sheets here if they're interested. I don't think I printed out enough, so what I'll do is I'll summarize given the 10 minutes that I have. So I have Shfoch Chamascha. And I think a good way to introduce this topic is from a conversation actually that we had at breakfast. And I'll go out on a limb here and I'll test myself to see if I understand the dispositions of the shir here. Okay, so imagine this. We're going to have a thought experiment. You need a car. You're in need of a car, and you found two cars at a great price, and they give you everything you're looking for, and it's really a decision between these two cars, okay? There's only one difference between them. Okay, one is a Volkswagen, one is a German car, and the other is some other car. Doesn't matter. Which one are you more likely to choose? Will that affect your choice as to which car you'll buy? They're exactly the same, but you know that one was made in Germany. Yeah, can I get anything? Like, no, it doesn't make a difference. It does. It does make a difference. Okay. So I think this sense, we don't need to necessarily explore this feeling, but this sense is really articulated in Shfoch Chamascha, in pouring out your wrath in a very healthy way. And let me explain. If you Google it online, you'll find a lot of articles that advocate removing it from the Haggaddah, because it talks about anger, it talks about hate, and we don't want to teach our children hate, and we don't want to be a part of invoking God to behave in a very hateful or angry way. So within the few minutes that I have, I'm going to try to mount a defense to keep Shfoch Chamascha in the Haggaddah and to highlight some significance, some profound significance to it. So let's just read it in English, just to have it. We can have a dramatic actor here, John Lithgow, that would be great. But all you have is me. So I'm going to read it in English, and we're going to see how severe it is. Pour your wrath upon the nations that did not know you, and upon the kingdoms that did not call upon your name, since they have consumed Jacob and laid waste to his habitation. Pour out your fury upon them, and the fierceness of your anger shall reach them. You shall pursue them with anger and eradicate them from under the skies of the Lord. Right? It's very dramatic, it's very serious. We can kind of see and understand why some people might feel a bit uncomfortable with saying this in the Haggadah. So I want to bring two approaches. I'll summarize them for you briefly. These are Chazal's approaches towards anger, towards what it means to have kas, or to what it means to have frustration or anger. I'm assuming chama or chamascha and kaascha are interchangeable in this case. The first is the Gemara from Sanhedrin, which brings a very famous parable that talks about the cloud that separated the camp of the Jewish people from the camp of the Mitzrim. And they weren't allowed to come close to one another. These two camps weren't allowed to come close. The Gemara asks why, and the Gemara tells a story. Because at that time, the Malachei Asharet, the angels, said, we want to sing Shira to you, Hashem. We want to sing praises to you, right? And Hashem retorts. You know what the retort is, right? What's the reply? Right? My creations are going to drown in the sea. They're drowning in the sea. And you want to sing Shira before me? Right? So who is God addressing himself to first off? The angels, right? He's not addressing himself to Am Yisrael. Am Yisrael are allowed to sing Shira, right? And there's a screen, there's like almost literally a smoke screen between Am Yisrael and between the Mitzrim, right? Am Yisrael, their experience is redemption. And so they get to feel a sense of Hakara Satov. They get to feel a sense of triumph and a sense of joy. But the Mitzrim, whom they can't see, what are they experiencing? They're experiencing suffering. They're experiencing punishment, right? The Malachim, on the other hand, that have a bird's eye view of what's going on, they can see both. They can see everything, right? And so they don't necessarily have a right to sing Shira when they would have to compartmentalize, so to speak, the suffering of people that may not necessarily deserve it, or people who are just quote-unquote following the orders of Pharaoh. Whereas the Jewish people have a right to sing because they are just focused only on their sense of salvation, on their sense of being saved. right? So there's a kind of compartmentalization that's going on here that the Malachim are not privy to, that we are privy to. That's the first thing. Because otherwise, if we know someone else is suffering and we're happy, that would be kind of cruel, right? That would be kind of cruel to sing at the expense of someone else, or to praise someone and to rejoice at the suffering of others. Our job is not to focus on the suffering of others. Our job is to sing Shira. Our job is to sing Hallel. That's what we're focusing on. That's what the Haggadah is trying to focus us on. Let's go to the next source. The next source is a Gemara in Shabbos. Wow, I took up 5 minutes. All right, so the Gemara in Shabbos talks about doing something in anger, like tearing your garment. It's actually a constructive act. So technically, you could be over an Isser Malacha on Shabbat if you rend your garment. Why? Because you're making yourself feel calm, right? It's like therapy. They take you to therapy and they have these like punching bags and you punch it and you feel better, right? Or just going jogging, right? That helps me sometimes when I'm frustrated. I go jogging, I calm down. So tearing your clothes is a constructive act. So you could technically be over an Isser Malacha. However, the Gemara objects and saying someone who acts in anger, someone who tears their clothes in anger, it's as if they are committing avodah zarah. Why? Why is it as if they're committing avodah zarah? Because the Yetzer Hara is in control of you when you have anger. You don't think with the rational part of your brain. The more primitive part of your brain, the more emotive part of your brain is activated, and you can't really control yourself. And you don't care about whether the Rabbona Shalom wills something differently. You just want your emotions fulfilled. You just want your ratzon done. Which is why when I klap al chetz on Yom Kippur, I can certainly say to some extent I've been over kiviyachal avodah zarah, because I know what it's like to feel angry. I felt angry before, and I know that it is condemned within Chazal, right? And the Yetzer Hara will tell me I get angry, I behave in this way. Eventually, the avodah zarah can control me and to actually worship avodah zarah mamash, real avodah zarah. So Chazal themselves distance themselves from anger and from cruelty, and yet nevertheless we say Shfoch Chamascha, right? So is there a proper way or a constructive way to channel our anger? And with this, I'd like to read an extract from a historian, a Holocaust historian who combats Holocaust deniers. Her name is Deborah Lipstadt, and she says the following, for those of you who don't have the sources. Many Seder participants are decidedly uncomfortable with this short paragraph, which asks that God's wrath be poured out on the nations that do not call out in God's name. Some modern Haggadot delete this paragraph, finding it too pregnant with vengeance and revenge. Defying the Seder's universal themes of freedom and liberation, it made their compilers uncomfortable. I, on the other hand, love it. Why my infatuation with this hard-hitting paragraph? I picture the many beleaguered Jews, particularly in Europe, for whom Passover, with its proximity to Easter, was a dangerous time. I imagine Jews who spent much of the year fearful that the non-Jewish world might violently turn on them. They knew they would have little recourse to protect themselves. Suddenly, for one short paragraph, they opened the door of their homes. Of course, most of their non-Jewish neighbors had by then retired for the night, and publicly told the world that what they wished for those who had done them evil. For one brief moment, they could let their desire for justice be heard publicly. They did not have to cower in fear. And yet they did not ask God to let them pour out their own wrath. This is the important diuk inference that she's making. Even now, when Jewish machismo has briefly appeared, they asked God to render judgment and to punish only those who did not call out in God's name. That is, those nations that failed to adhere to ethical standards. For one brief, shining moment, the Jew stood tall. The playing field was more than equal as the Jew turned to the judge of all the world, the same judge Abraham challenged in Genesis, and called upon that judge to do justice. And then, as suddenly as it began, it ended. The door was shut, the Jew sat down, the Seder continued. And all returned as it had been and would remain for too many years. Right? So this historian of the Holocaust is really aware that we've experienced a lot of suffering. And when someone causes you suffering or someone causes you harm, it's a natural consequence to get angry and to feel upset. And those emotions need to be validated. It doesn't mean that they need to be approved of, but they need to be validated and channeled in an appropriate way from a cultural consciousness perspective. And we're not asking that we get to take out our vengeance. We're asking God to take out what we would believe would be vengeance before Him. But let's also note, because it's very brief, where it's found in the Haggadah. Where Shfoch Chamascha is actually found also provides us with some context. It's found right after we welcome Eliyahu Hanavi into our homes. Eliyahu Hanavi was very zealous. He could be very angry as well. And there's a Aruch HaShulchan that says Eliyahu got so upset when the Bris Milah, we also welcome him at Bris Milah, another life cycle event. He got so upset that at one point Bris Milah was outlawed that Hashem had to kind of wager a bet with him, saying, you're going to see that the Jewish people will be okay and that they're going to continue to do Bris Milah. Which is why we have a Kisei Eliyahu. We invite Eliyahu in for every bris milah. Because Eliyahu was so upset that we weren't behaving appropriately that Hashem had to tell him, according to Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer, that there's going to be a special place for you at every bris in the future, so you see that we still keep our loyalty to the Rabboni Shalom, that the Jewish people still keep the covenant of Abraham by performing a bris. And it was at that time in Tanakh when Eliyahu said, this is too much, everyone is gone, I am here for you. When Hashem said, I need to appoint for you, you need to appoint a new leader. You need to appoint Elisha to serve under you. Because Eliyahu, in his righteous anger and his righteous rage, removed himself from the ability to continue to serve leading Israel. Let's build this parallel with Am Yisrael. What are we supposed to be? We're supposed to be a light unto the nations, right? And if we get so upset with the rest of the world, we could remove ourselves from our national goal and fulfilling our national destiny of relating to the world and being an Or Lagoyim. So we invite Eliyahu in first, because we can identify with his frustration, but we also know that there's a danger towards being angry, and there's a danger towards our own righteous rage, and it may undermine our very purpose of being an Am Segula V'Goy Kadosh. And so we have Eliyahu with us when we make this plea to Hashem. And finally, after we say Shfoch Chamascha, we say Hallel. We praise Hashem, and we begin the Hallel with Lo lanu Hashem, Lo lanu ki l'shim chatein kavod. Not us, but rather in your name give glory. This isn't only about our freedom. It's not only about how righteous we are. It's primarily about our goal in relating and bringing God into this world. And if we can channel our anger in that way, if only for a moment, then we can validate our feelings, and then we can grow in this experiential Seder together. We do it intellectually. We even poke the Tam and the Eno Yodei Alishol, the one who can't ask, to give them intellectual scaffolding. Shfoch Chamascha gives us emotional scaffolding as well, which is why it's a very important, or I'm arguing it's a very important part of the Seder. So I hope this brought a little bit of nuance to this short, intense paragraph. Thank you very much.